What's going on, everybody? Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining us for anything and everything rock and roll. Of course, with a little bit of ADD. I'm Zach.
I'm TJ.
And I'm Robin.
And you're listening to Rock Detention.
I don't feel tardy.
Gentlemen, it's been a while. How we doing?
Good.
Always good. I thought Robin forgot his name and line right there for a second.
I was waiting for you to say yours. You were the one with the pause.
Oh, yeah, I guess TJ's always number 2,
Yeah,
isn't he?
TJ's always number 2. So.
All
yeah.
right.
Never number 1, apparently.
Oh, no, you're always number 1 in our hearts, buddy.
Right here, buddy.
Oh.
What's everyone been up to? What has it been, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Not shaving, that's for sure. I'm actually doing the no shave in November, looks like.
Yeah, dude, same here.
Still can't.
I started it as a joke, but then I just thought, let's see what happens.
I had a gig, so I had to trim it up, keep it nice and clean. So. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know. Social
Otherwise
the social media presence I have to
What, keep the image?
keep the image thing.
Keep the image. Are you trying to be like a lawyer? Like, what's your thing?
No, I just don't want to look scraggly. You know, like, because my beard, like, it doesn't just grow out. It grows, like, out. It's annoying. It's the reason I don't have long hair either, because my hair is real curly. So when it gets out, it's just a mane of unkemptness. So I keep everything short.
Right on.
There we go.
Right on. All right.
A lot of
TJ,
exciting things, apparently.
Anything new in your world?
Just the whole basketball, doing sports, and going to concerts and traveling.
Is your sauna open?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just making
Still
sure.
open.
I know that's
Yes,
such a big deal to you.
Oh, you'd have heard about it by now if it wasn't.
Touche. All right, well, who do we got on this week, man? Give us a little backstory. And how did you make this happen?
Well, man, yeah, it's try and keep it quick, but I don't know how you introduce legendary status, but you guys will know him, and a lot of other people know him from, like, if you like Motley Crue, if you like Poison, you like Cheap Trick, you like...
Dude, I've heard of a couple of those bands.
Yeah, well, legendary rock and roll producer. Well, we could get into how we got it happening after we introduce him, but
Okay.
Mr. Tom Werman himself.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hey guys, it's nice to be here.
Oh,
Well,
thank
thanks
you
for joining.
for being here.
So yeah,
We're
What?
Yeah,
Who wants to
go.
talk? Who wants to talk?
Go ahead, TJ.
Oh, I was just going to say one of my good buddies and one of our big fans of the podcast actually reached out to Tom and got me in touch with him. And Tom was nice enough to reply to my email, and we've been chit-chatting ever since and finally made something happen. So I'm very appreciative, good sir.
Absolutely.
Hey, it's easy to find me, and I liked what I read from your emails, and I enjoy talking.
We like that.
So
Yeah.
do we.
yes.
Right, that's why we needed to start a podcast.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to Al Petrelli a few years back, and he was telling me about how back in the 80s, how hard it was to get a shot at something, because you recorded a tape of yourself and then you mailed it, and you may never hear back from them. And now we can get a hold of people through email or through social media. Like, people are a lot more attainable in today's world.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it was hard to get an appointment with an A&R man.
Back in the day.
Yeah, probably because statistically, people just about never signed an unsolicited artist. They all came through managers, agents, or lawyers. So I probably listened to, 5,000 cassettes when I was an A&R man, and didn't sign one of them. But the others, the ones that I did sign, were represented or recommended. So, I would then listen to it and say, oh yeah, this is worth investigating further. But I used to come in on weekends out to CBS. And I had cartons of cassettes. None of them really panned out at all.
How long would you, do you give a song the 30-second rule, or do you listen to these songs all the way through?
I wasn't very quick at hearing things, honestly. So, I'd put something on and try to busy myself doing something else or something. And if I was distracted from what I was doing, then I thought, well, this is worth listening to. I usually, about halfway into the second song, I'd be pretty sure about yes or no. And there were some yeses, that I did pursue, but they just didn't pan out. And fortunately, I never signed. I did sign bands that weren't successful, but I didn't pass on any bands that went on to be big. So that was good.
Okay, because that was going to be my next question. Was there any bands that you said no to but went on to do something huge? Okay.
No, but there were several that I wanted that my boss didn't want, that were enormous, and that would have made me king of the world.
Sure.
But I was young and new, pretty much, and it was in my first 5 years, and I didn't have the confidence or the courage to go up against my boss, who didn't understand rock and roll. He was a smart guy. He was a great guy.
You're talking about Clive Davis, right?
No, not Clive.
Okay.
Clive didn't. I mean, he hired me, but he was
okay.
My boss was another guy who was the head of A&R at Epic Records.
Okay.
And he was a wonderful guy, but he did not really relate to rock and roll, which was the bread and butter, of any label at the time. You had to sell a lot of records. So, I offered him Kiss and Leonard Skinner and Rush, and he passed on all of them. And it was a shame, big shame.
Okay, so when you say that you handed him these three bands, like you knew their management, or how did you bring them to the table?
Oh yeah, very different ways. An engineer named Ron Johnson came in to see me in my office, and he played me an almost finished album by a group called Wicked Lester. And I said, this sounds pretty commercial. I'll come down to the studio. And I went down to the studio, spent a few nights there, and I went back and suggested that we pay to finish the record. That was called a master purchase. So you liked it well enough to say, okay, we'll fund the completion of this album. So they completed the album, and then before we could release it, the band broke up. And so you don't want to release a record without a touring band. So a few weeks later, they called and said, Tom, come on down, please, and see us in a rehearsal studio. We've reformed, and we got a new drummer. It's a 3-piece. And it was, Paul, Gene, and Peter, and it was Kiss in their very first incarnation. So anyway, he didn't like him. I wanted to sign him. He didn't like him. The Rush thing happened. I can't remember. I think it was Ray Daniels was the. I can't remember who. He was a big manager in Canada. Anyway, I got to them through him. Mm-hmm. Went to see him at a high school auditorium. Loved him. Came back, wanted to sign him. You give the whole thing to the business affairs department, and they had financial parameters, and they said too much money. The band wanted $75,000 for 2 albums. firm. They wanted an advance, and that was too much money.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems very low for 2 albums.
Not then.
Not then, okay. Because now I feel like that's change.
It is. It is. Really. And then Skinner, their manager came in to see me, really good guy, Alan Walden, from Macon, Georgia, with a really fascinating accent, nicely dressed, very soft-spoken, played me Freebird demo. I've still got it, still have the demo.
So you heard Freebird before the world ever heard it?
Yeah. And I liked it very much. I liked them. They were, I mean, the 3-guitar attack, I wasn't familiar with it because I'm a northern guy, and we didn't do that up here. You know, southern guys are kind of rough around the edges, and they do the whole, you know, biker gang thing. And, but they're very delicate and very practiced and rehearsed when they play the guitar. And so they did like 3-part harmonies and things, and I said, wow. So I went down to Macon, Georgia. I saw them, and they had 2 drummers, and I said, wow, this is it. And I took my boss down to see them in Nashville at the Exit Inn.
It's still here.
Is it really?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and we saw their show, and afterwards we were walking back to the car behind the club. I think it was a parking lot back there. And I said, "What do you think?" And he said, "Good band, no songs." So, so that was that. That was that. Now, he went on to a different job, and my new boss said, "What have you been doing here for 6 years?" And I told him. And he said, "Well, gee, well, that's, you know, what a shame that those bands got away. Do you like anybody now? Is there anybody you're interested in?" So I said, "Yeah, Ted Nugent." And that was the beginning. So I was allowed to sign bands then.
Wow.
That's the deal. So that's how you get to bands: lawyer, manager, engineer, producer, you know.
That is incredible. Right on. Can I back up a little bit? What got you in the music industry in the first place? Were you a musician?
Yeah, self-taught. Can't read or write. Neither can McCartney. And so I played guitar. I had a really good band. We had a really good band in college, really good. I have to say that. We were playing a private party in Manhattan, and we took a break, and Nat Weiss came over to us. He said, "Hi, I'm Brian Epstein's lawyer in New York." And you know who Brian Epstein is, right? The Beatles manager.
Yep.
And he said, "I think Brian would like to hear you. You're good." And I said, I mean, this is 1965 or 6, and I said, "Well, look, if let's say we had a hit record, we'd have to tour, right? We'd have to go on tour." And he said, "That's what they usually do." And I said, "We can't do that because we'd lose our student deferment," and it was Vietnam. So if we had gone, you know, if we had gone on tour and left school, we would have been drafted. And I said, "We can't do that. Sorry." So I passed on auditioning for the Beatles manager.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a hard decision to make.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, at the time, no, it really wasn't. I was just a trained SEAL, and I did what I was told. And you know, I was in school, and rock and roll was not a career choice. It just wasn't. But anyway, so I went to business school, and then I went into advertising for a year, and I wanted to slit my wrist. I just hated it. And I was, you know, I loved music. I was a complete captive to music, and I just sucked it all in and retained it in my brain. Every note, every I could air guitar 1,000 lead breaks from like 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And I can even air guitar Axis Bold as Love. But anyway,
Nice. Nice.
I wrote a letter to Clive Davis, and I said, look, I'm here. I have an MBA. I have a job. I don't like it. I love rock and roll. I'm a musician. I think I can help you out over there. And so after 3 months, he interviewed me and hired me. That was it.
Wow. Was it hard to get off stage and be on the other side of things?
Oh, no. I mean, I was never happier than when I was performing. But we had such a great time. But to have the opportunity to tailor music to your own taste and your own liking, best job in the world. I mean, when I got to CBS, basically they handed me a credit card and they said, go find hits. I mean, who could there possibly be a better job in the world? Really?
I mean, you could take that. You could travel if you wanted to go to LA for a weekend.
Well, it wasn't. I had to have a reason, but we didn't find bands by social media. I mean, we didn't have any.
Sure.
So it was all live. It was all performing. It was all demos. And so if I heard a good demo, I'd hop on a plane. And, you call the travel department. This was CBS. This was serious. And they'd book you a flight, and and you'd go and hear something and then come back. And 3 months after I did sign a band when I first got to CBS. I signed REO Speedwagon.
Yeah.
And they've 50 years they've been on the road.
Mm-hmm.
50 years. Anyway, I heard them. I thought they were really good, and I flew right out to Champaign, Illinois. Had a great time. Boy, when the guy from New York comes into town to hear your band, they treat you really well.
I'm sure. And you were based out of New York this whole time in the 80s.
Yeah, yeah. After I started producing, I made a record with Cheap Trick in LA, and I'd never really been there. I'd never spent any time there at all, and I didn't know much about it. And all of a sudden, I said, "You idiot! You could live here." And for making records, it's heaven, because entertainment is the #1 industry, and everybody's there to serve the entertainment industry.
Sure.
So the studios are fantastic. The weather's warm. I mean, it was just a wonderful thing. So CBS moved me at that point. They moved my whole family.
Cool.
I said I'd rather live in LA. I can make records there more comfortably.
Right
So
on.
it was great.
So how did you get introduced to Cheap Trick? Because you produced several records for them, including probably their most successful one, Dream Police. So how did you get introduced to them? Because they have a weird, their kind of rise to success is really weird. Because they didn't.
They should have been much bigger. They should have been,
Yeah.
I think, much bigger than they were or are. Jack Douglas called me. Jack Douglas produced Aerosmith.
Okay.
And Aerosmith and Ted Nugent shared the same manager. And so I got to know Jack, and I had gone down to the record, I guess it was the record plant, or maybe the Hit Factory in New York, to watch him work with Aerosmith. And he called me and he said, I saw this band from Illinois. I really like them, and I think you should sign them. You should go see them. So I immediately went to see him, because I had great respect for Jack, who who at the time had made Rocks, the Aerosmith album Rocks, which I considered about the best rock and roll album ever made in America up to that point. Really good band, really good band. And so I signed Cheap Trick, and Jack produced their first album. Later on, I loved working with them. They were my favorite, really. Smart, funny, really good on their instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Great band. And I don't know why they weren't bigger than they were.
It's funny. I happened to stumble across. I think it was like it almost felt like it was a trailer for maybe a bigger documentary or something. But it was Rick talking about when they went to Japan, and he was like, "Man, Cheap Trick was tailor made for Japan audiences," and he was saying like they were opening for who was it? Anyway, they were opening for a real big band, and their first record hadn't even come out yet, and they were like, Japanese audiences were going nuts for them.
They did.
It was just listening to that story. I was like, that's just weird to be already ahead of the curve, and you haven't even released your first album yet.
Right. I was in Miami finishing Ted's fifth album, Weekend Warriors. By the way, I just want to add that in my 5 years with Ted, we never discussed politics. So we, we're at different ends of the spectrum that way. Sometimes I have a little difficulty explaining my friendship with Ted. So we'll let it go at that. I was down there, and I got a call from the head of the A&R department at that time at Epic, and he said, "Tom, Cheap Trick's going over to Japan, and we want to record their Tokyo date at Budokan. Can you go over and do that?" And I said, "Nah, geez, I'd love to, but I can't leave Ted here. I can't abandon this album, right at the minute. I need a couple of more weeks." So I missed that opportunity, which is a shame. I love Japan. We're going to go for 2 weeks this spring.
Oh, nice.
My wife and I and some friends. Fascinating culture, really. Anyway, we had finished Dream Police in 30 days because the band had a tour booked, and we had a deadline. They said, "You have to be finished by this time." In those days, it was a miracle to finish an album in 30 days. Usually took 2 months. And so from rehearsal to delivering, to the delivery of the album was 30 days. And then it sat on the shelf for 8 months because Budokan took off. Yeah. That was the deal there.
Dude, I did not know that they had a live album at Budokan.
Really?
Yeah.
That's like their famous "I Want You to Want Me."
Yeah.
I didn't know it was at Budokan.
Yeah.
Right on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So Budokan's very special to my heart because Ozzy Osbourne's my favorite artist, and
Who is?
Ozzy Osbourne.
Really?
He's my favorite, and the album that changed my life was Ozzy live at Budokan. That's what got me, because I'm sorry.
I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, well, if you are an Ozzy fan or a rock and roll fan, I highly recommend listening to it. But I grew up in country, gospel, blues. That's what I was raised around, and so I had to teach myself about rock and roll and learn on my own. And I'll never forget when one of my buddies told me to listen to Ozzy live at Budokan, and I've been a metalhead ever since. So.
Yeah. This is one of my boys here.
What's up, kitty? What's his name?
That's Bug.
Bug. What's up, Bug?
B-U-G, Bug.
Oh, Bud.
Bug. No, G.
Bug.
B-U-G, yeah.
My
Yeah.
bad. My bad.
You were right the first
Sorry.
time, Zach.
Hey, I did the best I could. So you said, wait a minute, let me make sure I have my question correct. Da-da-da-da. So you said Cheap Trick was your favorite band to work with?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well, the question I had was, when I say the words most memorable, who's the first band that comes to your mind? Is that also Cheap Trick?
Well, memorable could be good or bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure. So that's why I wanted this question.
Well, I think probably Motley was the most memorable. You know, they filled a lot of space. Four very different people, and but a really good team. I mean, they really actually were a motley crew. They didn't belong together. Nicky and Tommy did, I think. Vince was interviewed one time and he said, "If it weren't for this band, I'd be the guy bringing you your beach chair." And
Right on.
I thought was pretty honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, self-effacing. But yeah, I would say most memorable. Yeah.
What was I mean, obviously, you know, I've seen the Dirt and I've heard crazy stories about Motley Crue outside of the Dirt. Did they bring the craziness to the studio, or were they very professional at the studio?
It depends. Sometimes there was professionalism, but there was heroin too. So it went from very good to pretty bad. They were never out of control, but sometimes it was difficult to get them to focus.
Sure.
I have to admit that once in a while it was very good for me to have the band not focus, because I tended to want to make records for myself, you know, instead of for the band. I wouldn't ignore their wishes or sabotage anything, but you know, the ideal producer is supposed to be the guy who helps the band realize its musical vision. And, you know, in that respect, you're supposed to be neutral in a way,
Sure.
you know, and try to become one of them and see the music from their perspective, hear the music from their perspective. I didn't really do that. I just came in every day and said, what can I do to this song to make me like it better?
Okay.
That was it.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah, well, that's how I made records for all those years. And so, you know, I just say, let's try this, and we'd try it. And if it worked, we'd do it. Most of the time it did. But if it didn't, cool, I'm good. You know, they hired me. I was there to serve them. But if they were off in the corner, you know, with somebody distracted or whatever they were doing, if it wasn't over the recording console, I'm good. Leave me alone. Let's
Right
do this, let's do that. You know, and then at the end of the project, I always insisted that either that one member of the band approve the final mix before I took it out of the studio and delivered it to the label.
Any member or one that was delegated?
A delegated member, the leader or not.
You know, because it's like a backup vocalist, you know.
No, if they were on tour, then I'd email. I'd special delivery that, you know, a cassette of the album to them on the road. They'd listen to it and they'd say, "We approve." It was kind of a self-defense thing. It was safety order, because I'm sure you picked up on the fact that 20 years later, you suck. You know, when you're making the record, you're beautiful, babe. We love you. We're selling 1 million copies. You're the man. And then 20 years later, they're doing an interview, and you weren't really, he didn't pay attention. He didn't capture our sound well, and we didn't want to do this, but he made us do it. Complete bullshit. And I mean, total historical revision. They all do it. And so my only defense really is, hey, you approved it. You
Sure.
said it's okay. You said it's good. But there's a lot of bands out there who will blame the producer or a manager or somebody else for everything they didn't achieve. It's a shame, but it's part of the program.
Sure.
So, on the subject of kind of on the subject of that, we're curious because we were talking about it earlier today. So I believe it was 1998. Cheap Trick did re-recorded one of their albums. I don't think they ever released it. I think they released like one or two songs as like singles and whatnot. But as a producer who worked with them on the original version of the album, did it bother you to know that they went back and like re-recorded the thing or attempted to re-record it? Or
no, a few bands have done that. And Twisted Sister did that too. So I think about 25,000 albums. I'm a pop guy. I like hard rock music or really power pop.
Okay.
That's what Cheap Trick was for me, power pop. Not metal. I'm not a metal guy. And I wasn't a metal fan except for The Who. And even they're not really metal. They're very lyrical. Anyway, generally I made albums that were more commercial than raw, and that was the standard complaint from the bands later on, again, 20 years down the line. So they wanted to, I wanted to get them on the radio. I wanted to make hit singles with them so that then they could get an audience and then do what they wanted. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, it was my job to make hits, because back then, if you had a really successful album, it was on FM. There was AM and FM. Mm-hmm. AM was hit singles, FM was albums. So until you had, until you had a single, you really weren't heard that much, because FM radio was single stations. You'd have an FM station in Boston and New York and any big city, but they weren't connected. AM radio was they had chains. So if you had a song and it was added to this network, you could be on 40 powerful stations at once.
Okay.
And and that would stimulate sales. You'd sell 3 million albums if you had a hit single. If you had a really good album, you could sell 500,000. And that was just the way it was. So I wanted to get them to make them commercial and get them on the radio. And I did. Mm-hmm. And they were real happy about it then. And then they said, well, geez, they were worried about their street credibility and, looking not really, hard. They all, D. Snyder, in his book, he said, after they had sold about 7 million of Stay Hungry, he said, I personally ruined the record. And I said, how can that be? I mean, how can you have a record that sells 7 million? So because I don't think he wanted to take credit for it. I'm sorry, give me credit for having any part of the success. But the basic, but the reason they redid it is because they probably thought it was too pop.
Yeah.
Cheap Trick, same thing. That's why they did I Want You to Want Me in double time, because the way I heard the song and the way they said it was okay to do, and the way we did it was a dance hall tune, like the 30s. That's why we have a tack piano. That's why I put finger snaps in it. You don't put finger snaps in a hard rock song. So they weren't, I mean, they were almost embarrassed by that. They wanted to be a hard rock band.
Yeah.
Damn it. That's the deal.
Now, at this time, what year are we talking about at this point?
77.
Yeah.
Around there.
Okay. When did the hair and glam get really, really big? 80 what?
Mid 80s, early 80s.
Okay.
Poison was late 80s. Motley was
early
80s, and then I think we did the album, we did Shout in like 85.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Jess.
Maybe
Right, Jess.
82. I'm not sure, but anyway, yeah, that was the glam thing.
Okay, so I want you to think back to 1985, 80s. Who were you listening to? Like, were you so busy in work that you didn't have time to think about other bands or listen to other bands?
Yeah, pretty much. But I did have I was a runner, and I did have a playlist. I always listened to music when I ran, and I still do at the gym. I have a playlist, a workout playlist, and it's all classic. It's all pre-1990.
Okay.
And that's what I did back then. That's what I listened to back then. I listened to a lot of stuff. I was definitely motivated by, things like ZZ Top. Love ZZ Top. Love Eliminator. But I listened to Eagles. I listened to Fleetwood Mac. I listened to the great bands of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But when you've spent 12 hours in the studio, you do not want to relax by listening to music when you get home.
Sure.
But I have a fabulous long playlist of 62 songs that I think are the best, most inspirational song. And I can honestly lift more, last longer, run faster, when I'm hearing that music. With no music, there's no exercise.
Touche.
So, yeah, so I listened.
How many of those songs are produced by you?
I was gonna say.
No, I really don't listen to my stuff.
Really?
Once in a while, I'll be sitting in front of the computer. I'll have, I have little computer speakers. I don't have big speakers. Never really did. And I'll listen to something that I did because I'll be on YouTube and it'll show up in the right-hand column. I'll say, oh, look, and I'll listen to it, or somebody will want to do an interview about a specific album. So I go back and review it. And most of the time I really like it. I really do. There were a couple of things, that bothered me. Bunny should have been louder overall, I think, in Cheap Trick. Most of it I think it was pretty good.
That's wonderful, because a lot of people are, very hard on themselves and are always nitpicking things. But I'm glad to know that you're overall proud of everything you did.
I am. I have trouble believing movie actors and actresses who say, I never watch anything I did. I said, wait a minute. You can't finish a movie and not watch, not review your performance. But I honestly, certainly, there is one song on my on my gym playlist, and that's Auf Wiedersehen, Cheap Trick from In Color.
So you did listen to one that you produced.
Kick-ass song. I mean, really good song that could have been a punk song, could have been. It's timeless.
Yeah.
Fantastic song about suicide.
Oh.
Really good.
Speaking of that, you did Blow My Fuse with Kicks, right?
Yeah. It was. They're good. They're a great band too. Donnie Purnell was difficult. He's difficult, very guarded, very mistrusting. But they're good. They're good. They've got a big, as is quite evident, they've got a pretty big AC/DC thing going, Donnie especially. And that's fine, AC/DC was wonderful.
Who are you listening to today? What new bands are you digging?
I don't. I admit I don't. I never really sought new music after 1990, 91. As soon as Nevermind came out, I said, well, that's it for me. I loved it, but the whole Seattle thing and, everything changed very quickly. And it's not that I didn't like it. I mean, I like Nine Inch Nails. I love the Foo Fighters, and those were, but those are not current or new. They were for me, because that was about when I stopped listening to new music. My son works for Warner Records in LA. He in A&R, and we can't really talk about anything but the music from my era. I don't know. I have no idea about what they're doing today. I have no idea who's who. There's these huge artists and people on the cover of Rolling Stone. Honest to God, never heard of them. And that's okay. I'm not supposed to,
Do you misspeak? Go ahead.
But there are things, there are songs on my playlist that I've been listening to for 40 or 50 years, and they still work every time. I still love listening to them. I listen to every little, wart and mole, mistake, everything, and they work. I was talking with the son of a friend. He's in his late 20s, and I said, the music today is perfect, and it just doesn't work for me. It's all computerized, and it doesn't breathe, and there's no flats or sharps, and everything's auto-corrected. And he said, wait, I let me make you a playlist. So he made me a little playlist for the gym, and it was very good. And I heard it, and I said, you're right. I used it for 2 or 3 days, and I said, this is really good. Thank you for this. About a month in, I just didn't want to hear it anymore, because its impact wore off, its effectiveness wore off. It didn't inspire me. It didn't make me feel, it didn't pump me up, and it was intended to do that. And I think it's because it's perfect. So I, that's one of the things that I don't like about anything after the technological revolution.
Sure.
Really.
Same.
I mean, if you're a keyboard player and a computer whiz, you can be a rock star.
Mm-hmm.
But
No, I could.
I'm an idiot, a technological idiot, and all I did was talk to my engineer.
So y'all were doing. I'm assuming if you. So what was your last album? 1990.
It was Rockstar, the movie. There was a movie called Rockstar.
Zach is
Zach's very familiar with that movie.
It's my favorite movie of all time.
Really?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
I did the music, and that was my farewell to LA. And it was good because it was really, cast in the 80s. And I was a logical choice for that. And it was a lot of fun. And I got to see how a movie is made. And it was incredibly impressive because I always thought, people say, oh, you're a record producer. They have no idea how tough it is and how complex it is. What a difficult thing to do. But when I saw what a director does, I said, wow, this is child's play. What I do is child's play.
It takes us all, man.
Pretty amazing. Zach, I had Zach Wilde, and Jason Bonham. And that was like, what is it, like fire and ice? It was very difficult. So I knew that this would be the case, and I drafted Jeff Pilson from Dokken. He was the bass player. He's a really good team player, smart guy, cooperative, straight, and so I hired him to keep them in line. He was the bass player. It was a really good band.
It's incredible. It is my favorite soundtrack.
Yeah,
I mean,
good.
Steel Dragon is the greatest band that never existed.
That's great. Well, I liked it very much too. The job was very difficult and very different because, normally the producer is the captain. You say what we're going to do today, and here's the hours we're going to work, and these people can come in and these people can't, and you go home and we'll work on this. In a movie, the record producer just sits and waits for orders, and they'll call and say, we need this song. We'll be in the studio, just like playing video games, and they'll say, we need this song with a doubled intro and one less verse and a cold ending instead of a fade, whatever, and they need it by that night. So you have to either edit, remix, re-record part of it, and get it out to the set, because wasting tens of thousands of dollars an hour.
I want to stop you for 2 seconds. So the reason you need it for the set is so that they could use it for playback while they're lip syncing on the. Is that
for whatever? I'm not even sure. Why?
And were you on Pro Tools at this time?
I was just about to ask that.
No way.
So this was all analog.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Yeah. Rockstar was done on 2-inch tape.
Yeah, sure.
That's incredible.
I did one album digitally out of 52, and that was Poison.
I was gonna ask about that. I had that question about recording Ricky Rocket and stuff. So
yeah, we just had a comment on YouTube. Someone was asking if you had ever used any digital DAWs at any point. Digital audio workspaces, Pro Tools, Logic, all that kind of stuff.
No.
Okay.
No, we've had very limited. It's funny, when I started producing, the first album I worked on was 1970. I don't remember. It was the early 70s, 75, I think. Anyway, it was Ted, and we had 3 things that we could do to sound. We had a phaser, we had tape slap, and an echo chamber. and that was it. I mean, I think they had fuzz tones, but we didn't use that in the control room. Um, Later on, it just became silly. The numbers of things that you could do. Um, by the time I was finished,
Yeah.
but we did Poison digitally because of CC. I knew that we would have it would be challenging to keep him focused and straight, because he had some issues at the time, and I knew that we would be punching in endlessly, because they were great guys, Poison, honest, diligent, hard workers. There were no ringers on that album, but it took a tremendous amount of time to
Sure.
to do it, because they weren't that good. They weren't. Ricky Rocket told me. I mean, he said, "Listen, I know I'm not the best drummer in the world, but I try hard," and he really did. They were hard workers, but CC would, do a he'd begin a solo, and then he'd excuse himself and go to the bathroom, and then he'd come back and say, "Oh, I don't like it. Let's start again." And I think it took 8 hours to do the lead break, and nothing but a good time.
It's a great solo. Was that piece together, or did he eventually get it all the way through?
Oh no, it's punch, 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 punch. It's like play along. I'll get you in and out. Don't worry, because punching in and punching out analog, tricky.
Sure.
You can get a little gap here and there,
Mm-hmm.
so you have to really be good. I was good at editing and punching and all that stuff, but punching digitally is seamless. It's really easy. So if he's got it, if he's in sync with the track, I just say, play along. Here's where I'm going to get you in and out. Don't worry. So we did it. If we hadn't done it digitally, I would have had blisters on the ends of my fingers. There were
Sure.
so many punches, because you'd have a remote box with, play, record, rewind, fast forward, and you'd be sitting there with this box, and it would be operating the multi-track recorder, and you could go. The engineer would just take a break, and I'd be sitting there with the musician, with the artist, and we would just be working together for hours. And that's the way it went. But everything you hear on the Poison record, with the exception of a few harmonica parts, and I think I credited the guy, is the band. There are no ringers. I didn't hire ringers.
So how did you record the drums on that album? Was it just regular?
Regular.
Okay.
Everything was regular. I can't tell you. I would just let Dwayne or Gary. I had 4 great engineers over those years, and I wouldn't even come in the studio until nighttime on the first day. I just let the engineer translate my, directions or wishes or requests into sound. I didn't know how to do anything. I really didn't, except at the end when we mixed. That's the first time I touched the console, and it was only for levels.
So you were just telling people what you wanted up until the mix.
Yep, I
Wow.
would say, yeah. Well, yeah. After a certain point, sometime again, probably in the '90s, engineers became producers, because sound was more important than music, or at least as important. and so technology became a much more a significant part of record making. And in my day, there were, most producers were engineers as well, and many engineers did become producers. I was a strictly layman producer. I just came in, sat down, listened, and talked, and that was it. And I would say, let's do this, let's do that. I hear let's try a Hammond B3 in here with this would be good. How about a harmony? And let's if I wanted an effect, I'd tell Dwayne,
Right on.
let's make that do this. Can we do that?
Do you keep in touch with Dwayne?
Yes.
Right on. Is he still in the business?
No, he doesn't do much. He doesn't do much of that. He actually worked for some company, some industrial company. He sent me a bunch of free hand sanitizers when the pandemic started, because he was making those. He was wonderful. He was really good, Dwayne. All my guys were really good. They're really good, and I owe them a lot. And we had fun.
That's the main thing.
Yeah.
You got to be in that environment, because I grew up in major recording studios. My father's in the industry, and if I've learned anything, yes, you want to be with great people that know what they're doing, but more than anything, they've got to be a fun hang. You've got to want to be around these people and want to work with them. So I'm not surprised at all that you had a great relationship with these guys.
We really did. I mean, I spend more time with my engineer than my wife in those days.
Sure.
You're there working with somebody 8 to 10 hours a day, every day, day in and day out, in stressful, situations. So you got to trade on humor and patience and
Sure.
and drugs, of course.
Patience, humor, and drugs.
There you go.
I'll write that one down.
3 secrets to life.
In those days, there just were a lot of drugs. Party favors.
Yeah.
Really, not. We're not talking opioids or heroin. We're talking, a lot of cocaine. The whole town ran on cocaine. The whole country ran on cocaine back then.
Cocaine.
Gotta stay awake.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Musicians were fond of it. Yeah.
Sure.
So, was there ever a moment where you had to use a ringer for someone, where it was just like, okay, clearly this isn't working. All right, we need to get somebody else to cut this.
Clearly this isn't working. I don't think I ever had to. I wanted to. When we did, there were 2 Cheap Trick songs I had guest guitarist on. One was "I Want You to Want Me," and that was kind of a jazz session guy named Jay Graydon, and he did all the light fingered lead work on that, and Steve Lukather did the lead work on Voices.
Wow.
So, and I think I may have played the rhythm guitar on that.
Yes. Did you get a credit on the liner notes?
I didn't usually take credits. I did all my percussion on every album.
Like bongos and.
Well, no, I didn't play congas or bongos. I played anything that shook or slapped or, I played maracas all the time and eggs and a lot of tambourine. I would just come in one day and do the whole album at the end of the session. And I said, if you don't like it, we'll hire somebody. And they never did.
Right on.
They accepted it all, and it was so much fun.
Of course.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
That is awesome. I would you ever produce again?
I don't think so. I wouldn't know how. I would produce analog. I would produce the old-fashioned way. Um, See, it would take me way too long to use this technology. I suppose I could do the same thing. I could just talk to a guy who knew how to do it.
Sure.
But then he'd be the producer. I think really, if I were to be useful musically, I'd just be a consultant. And I'd say, why don't you do this? That note is, try this instead.
Sure.
That's all. I did do one single novelty song about 10 years back, maybe 8 years back, in Charlotte, North Carolina. Anyway, a guy sent me a song. It was very, very clever, and I went down to North Carolina, and I went into a little studio, and we did the song, and I produced it, and we had a wonderful time, and I financed the whole thing, and I loved it, and it's very clever, and of course it never, we never got it signed, or I don't think it ever made it to an album, but I did it, and then I came back and continued with my life, and he tried to do something with it. But that was the last time I was working in a studio, once in the last 21 years.
Right on.
Yeah. When I left, because I knew that it was the end of an era.
Yeah.
For me and I think the music. I mean, I think rock and roll is defined by maybe 1954 to sometime in the 90s, and that was it. That was real rock and roll music.
I mean,
I was lucky to be 9 years old when Elvis started. It was 1954, and it was the most important event in my life, my young life. Elvis. Wow.
Rock and roll it's analog, because there's not, in essence of rock and roll, there's not a digital element to it. It's someone hitting drums that are built with a head on it. It's someone plucking a string, and yeah, there's an electronic pickup, but it's all analog. Yeah. So, because
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But honestly, I can't tell. People think I'm an audiophile because I'm a producer. I don't know much about audio, and I don't think I'm really capable of differentiating between digital and analog when I hear it. Maybe it's a tiny bit, more crystal sounding, a little, a little thinner, not as full, but hard for me to tell the difference. I can't say, oh, that's digital, or oh, that's analog. Can't do it. Some can. Maybe you guys can. I don't know.
I can only tell if it's like an older recording, but if someone today was like, here's 2 albums that were made last year, it's all mastered through a computer. Like they didn't do the whole, if the whole process was done analog, and I'm listening to it on a vinyl, and I go between 2 vinyls, one that was digitally produced and one that was like fully 100% analog, you could probably hear a difference.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
in this day and age, it's all at some point in the process, it's all processed through a computer. So.
Yeah, and that's strange because bands will go out of their way, like the Foos,
mm-hmm.
to do a whole analog, but then it'll, as you say, it'll get the modern treatment, unless you actually insist that you do it the old-fashioned way all the way,
and then it ends up on this. And it's still a computer.
Right.
So
Yeah, the mastering process was a magical thing. I loved it.
Oh yeah.
You know, because you'd bring your, I'd fly to New York and I'd go up to the 747 lounge in the plane, and I'd put my earphones on and I'd listen to the cassette of the full album, and I'd make all my little notes for mastering. And I bring it to the mastering lab. I always mastered in New York at Sterling Sound, and I used the same guy. And I'd walk out of the mastering lab with a completely different album. It was like peeling a layer of sludge off the top of some surface and revealing the glistening surface below. You know, it was a good mastering engineer could really help you out.
Were you there for the entire process?
Oh yeah, yeah. Then I did a little knob handling in mastering. I was a big fan of compression because I had, in the beginning, I had no idea what it was, but it's a wonderful thing to be able, because basically and essentially it takes what's too low and makes it louder, and what's too loud and makes it softer, and it just jams everything together. So it's much easier for you to hear every individual thing that's going on with some compression. And I used to listen to FM radio when I started out, and I'd listen on stereo headphones on my living room floor. I'd get high and listen to music, and I'd hear this, and it would sound so good. And then I'd play one of my records, like a Ted Nugent album in the beginning, and I'd say, shit, there's something that I just don't understand about making records, because my record just doesn't sound anything like this good. There's something about it. And then for the first time in my life, I heard a song that I produced on FM radio. And I said, whoa, is this great? It had that thing that I heard, that I said, what is it? What is it that makes my records sound so unlifelike? And these are so good, and they pump, and it was compression. They were heavily, the FM signal was heavily compressed in those days. And boy, did that was great. I was so relieved.
Sure. Now, speaking of Nugent, I got to go back to Rockstar, because did you have any did you get to choose any of the music that was, because like they used Stranglehold in the show, in the movie?
Yeah, love Stranglehold.
That song, there is not a better song for the scene that is used for. It is genius.
Yeah, it is. There's something about Stranglehold that's threatening. The beginning of the song it's just dark.
Yes.
It's dark, and it's like, it's Ted. It was wonderful. It was the first song I ever mixed. No, I didn't mix it myself, but with the engineer.
Sure.
What a great thing. I played Ted's guitar. That was the slap. It was on a tape slap, and it was a measured, so I made him play duets with himself. And I didn't make him do that. He played a part, and I would make it follow itself.
Okay.
In a very musical and harmonic way. It's hard for me to explain it, but you can hear it. You can hear a lot of tape slap on Stranglehold. And I sent the album to him after it was mixed, and we spoke on the phone, and he said, I really like what you did, and I really love Stranglehold, but don't ever do anything like that again without telling me first. I said, okay, Ted.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
So he was not a fan of the slapback,
He loved it, but
just on that song.
He was really, not happy about my taking the liberty of doing it. And he was right. I kind of got carried away. I said, "What is this? This is all great. Let's do more." So
but when you sent him the mix, did you was there overnighting back then?
Yeah.
Okay.
You could do that. I suppose we did. You'd insure it and all that stuff. But I remember when after I finished, I guess after the year 2000, people started sending music to each other via computer. You add this part, and then I'll send it on to Joe, and he'll add his part. And you did not use the mail, and you did not use tape, and it was like, wow,
yeah.
Things are really changing. Yeah, we used to. Ours was like Pony Express. It was,
wow.
We were pretty basic. When I started recording, they had just developed 16-track analog 2-inch tape. Before that, Beatles were 4-track. It's pretty amazing what happened.
But then by the time you did Rockstar, I mean, 24-track was out, and I mean, even digital 48-track.
32-track.
Or 32.
Digital.
My bad.
Yeah. But we still did analog. We had to do it analog. But we would put two machines together.
Okay, so you had 48 tracks to work with.
Yeah, it was stupid because it made it so difficult to, you'd get a console that was like the Enterprise. It's just absurd, like 30-foot long console, and you'd have chairs with wheels on them, and you'd wheel down here, and you move some faders, and then you run back there, and then it was all computerized. And the first computerized recording consoles had chain drives for the faders, like a bicycle.
Wow.
And the faders would move, and they were on little tiny chains underneath the board.
Did they break all the time?
No.
Could you hear them when it would like it would?
Oh no.
Oh, it was,
no.
Okay.
But it was like black magic. People would come in the studio and say, "Look, watch this," and you do something to a fader, and then you'd play it back, and the fader would move by itself, and it was like, wow. like the monkeys in 2001, The Space Odyssey. Anyway.
That is it. And then sorry to keep on bringing up Rockstar. I just love the movie.
We warned you.
Yeah. So how much were you there the entire time the movie was being filmed?
Well, yeah. I mean, sometimes I was on the set. Most of the time I was in the studio.
Okay.
I spent a lot of time in the studio waiting around.
Was this 2-3 months? How long was that time period?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a while. It just took longer. I never got to hang out with the cast very much. Mark Wahlberg and I talked about Boston. We did Boston accents together.
Sure.
I met Brad Pitt through what's her name?
Jennifer Aniston.
Jennifer Aniston.
Did you get to meet Jennifer?
Forget things.
He just
like
said
that.
he met Brad Pitt through Jennifer.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, my bad. I just was thinking about Jennifer.
Yeah, that was great. The nicest, the most memorable person in that cast was the guy and I can't remember his name now, the English actor who was in The Affair on TV.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I can't
He
think of
was
his
the
name.
head
Though.
of he was the head of Steel Dragon.
Yep.
The guy who kind of kicked the
Got
other
kicked
guy.
out.
He kicked
Yeah.
out, what's his name? Anyway,
Was it Dominic West?
yes, Dominic West, and very nice guy early in his career. Really good guy. So that was fun. That was really pretty interesting, and they kept playing the. You asked me a question about how did they use the songs, why did they need them? I just remember them being played repeatedly during like I remember the scene when Mark had to fall off the stairs coming down, so the music was playing the whole time, all the time.
Gotcha.
Every time they rolled camera, because there was so much performance footage.
Sure.
And not all that much off stage. There was a whole lot of on stage shooting.
What arena was that in? That first scene, Mark's first show with Steel Dragon.
I think it was. It wasn't the Forum. It was the second biggest arena in LA. I can't remember the name of it. It might have been Long Beach. I don't know, but I do remember that. I went down for that one.
And how many people were actually there? Like, was that all CGI people, or was it a full arena?
Oh, I can't remember that. I think they did probably half. I can't remember that. I'm sorry. I really should.
Worries.
Yeah. There's a whole lot that I can't remember at this point.
Well, you have
It's
enough
all
memories,
good.
so you got to make room for them somewhere. I got to kick a few out.
That's right. Yeah. And get rid of some of those guitar solos. Geez, they occupy a lot of space.
Memorial Sports Arena.
Was that it?
Yeah, that's what it says. A concert scene was shot at the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena before 10,000 Metallica and Megadeth fans.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I don't know.
Wow. That would have been something to remember, but I didn't.
Well,
Thanks,
Robin.
That's what Wikipedia says, and truthfully, I take Wikipedia with a little bit of grain of salt. So,
well, it can be edited.
Yes,
right.
Yep.
It's pretty difficult to edit it, but it can be edited. So,
right.
But
yeah,
I was
going to say something about big shows back then, but of course I can't remember what I was going to say. So what were you going to say?
I was going to take a left turn and ask you about when you produced albums, greatest hits albums.
Oh yeah.
I've always been curious, is that when a record company wants a greatest hits album of a band, is the band involved in that, or is that more of like the record company's like, we just want a greatest hits of it, so go put one together?
They probably sign off on the selections.
Okay.
And then maybe record one or two new songs, bonus tracks, but that's free money for the label.
Yeah.
You just pull them out of the vault and put them together, and there you go. Live albums are pretty cheap too.
Yeah.
And they make, some of them were just enormous. Made a lot of money. Live albums were not live, not all live. It depends on who it was and how good or bad they were, but there was a lot of re-recording and funny stuff that went into a live album. I had 3 different audience tracks running, 3 different machines running during every song that we mixed on Double Live Gonzo for Ted Nugent. There was a double live album. And so I'd have one screaming, audience, one screaming audience with whistles and fireworks, and one clapping audience, and I'd just bring them up and down and try to make them different. And, there are some live songs that have an audience reaction that is so absurd. It's so loud. The song ends and the crowd goes completely berserk, and you say that can't be, that's just not right. But people do re-record stuff. I did a live. I was the executive producer on this Jeff Beck album with the Jan Hammer band, and I wound up. I did a lot of re-recording with Jeff, which was a major honor. But even Jeff Beck had to correct some clams that he made in his playing. So some of them are more live than others.
When you go in the studio and fix that, how do you make the studio tone sound similar to what they did live that night so that all the fixes mesh?
Well, same, basically same guitar, same amp. And then the tough part is the audience, the PA, because, the live performance will be there. It will be coming through the PA, and you need the PA for the hall sound.
Sure.
So it's difficult, but not impossible.
Gotcha.
We did I think by and large, the people who made the records did a very good job of fooling the listener, thinking that it was really all live.
You fooled me.
Even the best bands, did some. I'm sure the Stones did it, definitely. I mean, Keith, he's just not that good. He's a fabulous composer. He is the best guitar licks in the history of rock and roll. But a technician, not very good. He's just all feel.
Yeah.
I think this could be heresy, but you compare Keith Richards playing to Joe Walsh. No comparison. No. Joe hits every note on the nose, and then Keith just plays, creates this feel.
Being a guitarist, who is your favorite guitarist?
Well, I think Pete Townsend, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right
He had
on.
a fabulous right wrist. His rhythm playing really was the locomotive for the band. He and Keith Moon. But he was a great composer, rhythm player, and lead player. He's just it. Joe Walsh is right up there too. Really like him.
Right on. Mine is Zakk Wylde, and so that was another reason I was excited.
Shredder, major shredder.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Did he bring all his Marshalls to the studio when y'all did Rockstar?
He was majorly maxed out in all ways, and he would, he'd drink like 2 6-packs in an evening. And he had this one kind of beer that he really liked. I can't remember what it was, but he was a beer drinker. I don't know. Sometimes I thought, that he's just playing too damn fast. Can we be a little more lyrical? But I wouldn't say that. I kind of, you let Zakk do what Zakk does. pretty much left that band alone to do, you know, to do the songs the way they were written. I had never heard any of those songs. They were all pretty fresh,
Sure.
you know.
Which one was your favorite?
You know, I can't remember. If you'll name a few.
Well, you've got Stand Up and Shout.
Stand up and shout was probably the one. You know, I got the Mike Matijevich have you ever heard Steelheart?
Steelheart's awesome.
Yes.
That guy's got a voice.
He did We All Die Young, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because Jeff Scott Soto did Stand Up.
Oh, he did, right. See, these were guys, like I had done a Steelheart album, so I got Mike, and Jeff used to do some backing vocals on my records.
Jeff Scott.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, he was good. He was very, very good. He should have been a big solo artist.
He's still doing a solo thing.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was good looking guy, very talented, tall, really, really an imposing figure.
He's out with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra now. Are you familiar with any of their stuff?
Yeah. That's awfully kind of strange. They're didn't they usually kind of emerge around Christmas time?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They go for 2 months a year.
Yeah.
But he rocks it. He's great. Really nice guy.
Yeah, he is. He was a very nice guy. There were some very nice guys, and then there weren't. No.
I'm sure in every industry you're going to have something along those lines.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Good people and bad.
Any band bringing you out of retirement?
No. You know, this business about retirement. I mean, it's the first time I haven't worked for a salary. You know, in what? Geez, 50. I don't know. Since I was 23 or 4, I started working, and I didn't stop until 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Congrats on the retirement.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks. Oh, it'll be great. We're waiting for our house to be finished. We're not building. We're renovating a house up the street, and the supply chain got us.
No.
I mean, really, really serious.
Oh.
It's very hard to renovate a house when you have no labor and no materials.
It might have been a little bit difficult.
I paid $37 for a piece of particle board at Home Depot a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I used to get it for $10-15.
Yeah. Well, you can imagine what a whole house flooring cost.
Sure.
I don't.
New white oak, you know, and
I don't want to imagine what that would cost right now, because my bank account would just cry.
yeah, really, it is quite something. It's a lifetime of royalties. You know,
There you go.
what it
There
costs.
you go. And then what do you foresee yourself doing in retirement? Any fun hobbies or
Well, I wrote a book. I'm going to finish that. It's just about finished. It's pretty good. And it's about the 70s and 80s rock and roll. I'm going to do more writing. I have another kind of book that I want to write. I love to play golf.
Hey, sign me up.
We have about a 6-month season here. I want to travel some more. I want a dog again. And, you know, maybe do nothing, maybe meditate a little, maybe take a walk. I just know that I'm not going to be bored in retirement. I can't understand when people say, I retired, but I got bored. Don't you have anything you're interested in doing? You know, take adult education courses, learn how to do something with my hands. There's a lot of stuff. I can volunteer at the local humane society. I'd like
Sure.
that. Be around dogs all day. Plenty to do.
Right.
Plenty
Yes.
to do.
Good.
Well,
I
if
think
you're
it can be all right.
Yeah.
if you're ever in Austin or Nashville or Minnesota, Las Vegas, hit us up. We'd love to see you.
That would be very nice, and we might be. I've been to all those places, like them a lot. In Austin, is the Ironworks still open?
Ironworks Barbecue there on Cesar Chavez, and
Yeah.
yep, still there.
Like it.
There's a lot that has changed in this city, and a lot of old things
Yeah.
have gone, and this last year has been especially rough on this city. But
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
but a lot of the staples made it through with support from the city. But yeah,
Good.
the Ironworks is still here. So
Yeah. I used to go to South by Southwest when it was just music and when it was just beginning.
Mhm.
I was on a panel one year. Stay at the Four Seasons, wasn't it?
Yep.
The Four Seasons.
Four Seasons Hotel.
Still there.
Yep.
The lobby and during South by Southwest was like, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. It was just people making deals and talking and humming, and it was jammed. And so then Sixth Street. Was Sixth Street? Is that
Yep.
right?
6th Street.
Yeah. We'd just go to like 10 clubs in one night.
Yeah.
It was great. It was just great. And I never knew. Austin wasn't my idea. The vision I had of Texas.
It's
I had been to Dallas and I'd been to Houston, and it's not right.
yeah, and it's we very much are pride ourselves on that, of not being like everything else.
Right.
As we say,
Right.
we're the blueberry in the tomato soup. So, we're just
Is that what we say? I've never
Yeah.
heard that.
yeah.
This is my other boy. This is little man.
Little man.
Oh, so we have
Yeah.
Bug and Man.
Little man.
Yeah, he's my good boy.
Oh. I thought there was a kid crying earlier, but I bet it was a cat talking. Okay.
Siamese, very talkative. Very talkative.
Did anybody else hear a train whistle, like really loud train whistle?
Yeah, I think that's his phone.
Oh, okay. So I'm not going crazy.
I saw Robin really confused twice this whole podcast.
was
I'm like,
like-
it's just a ringtone.
Well, because because this app that we're using has sounds that when someone dings or sends gives it a like, gives the video a like, or gives a comment, it'll make a sound. And so I was sitting there going
Yeah.
like, did I forget to turn one of the sounds off? Like, couldn't figure out what it was. But-
I don't know why it does it. My devices all make sounds, and I have no idea why or how to turn them off.
That's okay.
Oh, my phone dinged at the beginning of the show, and I was like, "Whoops, turn that off." So, oh man.
All right.
Tom, this was an absolute pleasure.
Great. I had fun too. We could do it again in a year.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
there's probably always
Yeah.
more to talk about.
Catch
Thank
up
you.
on retirement.
Yeah.
Thank you all. It's very interesting and it's great to know that there three of you in different parts of the country being able to do this thanks to technology. It's a wonderful thing, and it works. Wow.
Yeah.
We had a lot to work through, but this is actually our 50th episode, so
Yeah,
I do
so
want to say
congrats.
congratulations to all of us.
We've made it 50
Um,
episodes. That's right.
And it's an honor to have you on here for the 50th episode. So thank you very much.
Sure thing. I'm just going to close the lid now.
Oh,
Is that it?
we're gonna sign
not
off.
yet.
But
We're gonna do a quick sign off.
Oh, okay.
So we'll tell you bye in just a second. So just hold tight. But for all of you who tuned in, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure. And have a blessed week. Thank you again, Mr. Tom. And over to you, TJ.
Yeah. Thanks for joining, Tom. Appreciate it. And I know probably went a little longer than you wanted, but appreciate all the stories and enjoy retirement. Anybody that tuned in, love you guys. Keep supporting and do that like thing and subscribe thing. And that's all I got. Over to you, Robin.
it This was a blast. Tom, thank you so much. This was really cool for me as someone who's been on both sides of the board as a recording musician and then also being an engineer as well. It's just hearing stories from the other side is always just so much fun. But yeah, as TJ said, follow us, like us, all that weird stuff that we have to tell you to do on YouTube. So I still don't like saying that. It feels weird.
No.
And yeah. So
I had a great time. I really enjoyed this. And thank you.
Well, thanks again, Tom.
Zach, you want to dismiss this class?
Yeah.
That's your job, Robin. Say it.
Class dismissed.
Is this thing still on?
It is still on. Do you want to? Okay, we're gonna continue.
Okay, it should be off now,
Yeah, we're
right?
turning it off. I'm ending.